We're Sentia Health, a wholly owned subsidiary of Sentia Systems. We are in the business of streamlining and automating processes, and we have even automated the production of new software. Usually we talk about the state of healthcare and health insurance in the United States, but today is a little different. Today we are going to discuss the things that make an enterprise application. I'll be back after the presentation to discuss our conclusions and what this all means to you.
In this week's video, we are going to do something a little different. We have talked about architecture, but today we are going to talk about the things that make an application enterprise. At first glance, this is going to look technical, but we won't be doing the deep dive, just a few sentences about what goes where in an enterprise application. At Sentia, we have designed and developed tools that automate the production of new software. We generate 50 to 60% of the code for a new application and all of the architecture. An enterprise application is one that is built for larger organizations and governments to manage complex tasks. The objective of these applications is to automate various company operations and reduce project complexity. They must be scalable, robust, easy to use, and fault-tolerant. Clearly, automating processes drives down cost and drives up profits. In fact, it makes some things possible where they were not before. Clearly, if we can get more done with fewer people, we can drive business growth. With improved communications, either literally, through a chat application, or through workflow-based messaging informing a worker what to do next. We can also automate communications with customers by either putting them in a future contact list so they don't drop through the cracks, or sending scheduled emails or text messages. Finally, we can automate entire industries. For example, you don't need people to run a bank. You as the consumer put money in, you take money out, you tell the bank whom to pay. That is it. No people required. Insurance is a bank that only pays certain people. You go to the doctor and the insurance company pays for your healthcare. At Sentia, we have written an electronic medical record system, EMR, that picks up procedures performed and pays for them in real time. That automates the whole messy, expensive health insurance system and should save about half from the cost. That is what enterprise software can do. Sure, the enterprise application has to be functional, but that is not the whole story. Architecture is the study of what code goes where, so that the application is robust and maintainable. We at Sentia usually use a master data management (MDM) and a single sign-on (SSO) approach. That means that anything that might be repeated in a database, like first name or address, should be kept in the common MDM database. The SSO is the source of truth for authentication and authorization. That means that it ensures that you are who you say you are, and that you can only access what you are supposed to be able to access. Other databases are added to create specific functionality. The database is the repository of all the data and a way to create, read, update, delete, and search for it. There is no logic here beyond specifying a condition to return a subset of the data like where first name equals Monty. The API layer actually consists of 4 separate projects. This is where we put the code that retrieves data from the database. This is where the interface contracts and templates, or model objects, go that house the data from the database. This is where we do things like decouple the database representing objects from the objects we pass around to the various higher layers. That way, if we swap databases and the new database has a sex column instead of a gender column like we are used to, we can map that change here. We can also enforce rules like only approve a colonoscopy if the patient is over 45 years old. The API project is where the actual interface that is called by the client application is built. It keeps the signatures of the various methods and their parameters to pass back to the database layer. The BFF is an aggregation layer that brings together all the data that an application might need from the API layer. For example, every application will need access to the MDM and the SSO at a minimum. Most make calls to other APIs as well, so that we don't have copied functionality between applications. This is the pretty part that the end user sees. This contains all the code to display and validate the data, but no business logic. On your screen is a diagram of the architecture for Sentia Health's suite of enterprise medical applications and their dependencies for reference. Notice that the MDM doesn't have a BFF because it also doesn't have a UI. Hardware and networking are major considerations of an enterprise application. Generally, we want to have at least 2 nodes in a cluster, so if one machine goes down, it automatically switches to the other. For application servers, where the UI lives, we need to build a web server farm. The web farm consists of at least 2 servers with many web server instances on them. This also makes scaling easy, since we can just add servers to the cluster. Web servers can't utilize all the memory and processing power a server generally possesses. To combat that, we install several web servers on a machine to handle requests in parallel. We generally want at least 2 servers in a database cluster, one as a primary and the other as a backup in a high availability cluster. This also makes scaling easy, since we can offload databases to new servers as more power is needed. The SAN is a cluster of at least 2 big data storage units, one as a primary and the other as a backup. This is all that goes into connecting all this together. We generally run 3 switches: application communication, IPMI or console access, and SAN communication. That means that each server must have at least 3 network cards, and we generally use a bridged 10 gigabit card with 2 ports for increased speed to the data on the SAN. There are also a pair of clustered firewalls adequate to the task of providing VPN and security for the network. A truly enterprise suite of applications will have a centralized logging repository. This repository is searchable by application, time, and type of error or event. Our choice is also set up as a document database and can store any number of documents in their native format and make them searchable. The descriptions above are for on-premise style hardware management. The big consulting companies recommend this because it is easy. While they don't have to worry about all the redundancies in clustering, and even switching, it is eye-wateringly expensive. For the price of a year of cloud hosting, you can buy a cage full of new equipment and be done with it. These servers have a stated 5 to 7 year lifespan, but as they age, we can just add new servers to the cluster and either repurpose the old or just augment them. We can certainly, and will, use cloud hardware solutions, but experience tells us that you will be buying the equivalent of the server cage described above every year, instead of once in 5 to 7 years. While this all seems relatively simple, I encourage you to go back and look at the diagram previously presented. Each of these applications consist of tens or hundreds of thousands of lines of code. While it may be simple, there is a lot of it, and there aren't many, or any, who have an understanding of all of it. Sentia is committed to returning value for dollar instead of simply billing astronomical fees that are basically ongoing. I would encourage anyone who is interested in purchasing or subscribing to enterprise software to request design documents from your preferred vendor. If they can't or won't provide documentation like the above, you should probably steer clear.
Not all enterprise applications are created equal. Ask Cerner or Epic for design documents. Install ServiceNow or Salesforce, and then have to hire an architect and many developers to modify them to fit your particular purpose. Remember value for dollar, not billable hours. Also remember that with the automated code generation tools, we have about half the application written on the first day. This gives us a huge advantage of a tried and true methodology for producing new code and enforcing our developers' adherence to that standard by literally doing all the architecture and most of the coding for them. Contact us here or on our site, and we will be happy to discuss what we can do for you. If you liked what you heard, please like and subscribe, click on the notification icon, subscribe to our newsletter, and follow us on all our social media and blog sites. You can read the text version of this presentation at sentiahealth.substack.com or sentiahealth.com.